Welcome back, coin hunters. Police, what if a simple 5-cent Jefferson nickel from 1968 could be hiding a story, and potentially a surprising collector premium, right in front of you? Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1968 Jefferson Nickel, a coin from the Denver Mint that many people might overlook as ordinary pocket change. But before you spend that nickel, stop and look closely at the date, the D mint mark, the condition, and those famous Monticello steps, because tiny details can make a huge difference in the collecting world. Magnifying money, stay with me until the end because we'll uncover what makes this coin interesting, what collectors actually look for, and how to avoid confusing an ordinary example with a truly special one. Subscribe to Coin Hunter, share this video, and let's go hunting for America's hidden coin treasures together. Let's get started. Welcome back, fellow coin enthusiasts. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and underappreciated gems in American numismatics, the 1968 Jefferson Nickel. Now, before you scroll past thinking this is just another 5-cent piece rattling around in your change jar, let me stop you right there. This coin carries a story so rich, so layered with American history and collector intrigue that once you understand what makes it special, you'll never look at a nickel the same way again. The 1968 is not just a coin, it's a time capsule, a piece of monetary art, and for the right collector in the right grade, it can command prices that will absolutely blow your mind. To truly appreciate the 1968 Jefferson Nickel, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year 1968 was one of the most turbulent in American history. The Vietnam War was raging, the Civil Rights Movement was reshaping the nation, and the U.S. Mint was navigating its own quiet revolution. Just 3 years earlier, the government had removed silver from most U.S. coinage, and the Mint was still recalibrating production across its facilities. The Denver Mint, stamping that bold D mint mark beneath the date on the obverse, was churning out millions of these nickels. But within that massive production run, something extraordinary was quietly happening. Specific die pairings, striking pressures, and planchet qualities were creating coins of breathtaking sharpness and luster that most collectors simply walked right past. What separates a common 1968 nickel from a genuinely valuable one is a combination of factors that only a trained eye or a passionate collector would notice. The Jefferson Nickel features the iconic portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, designed by Felix Schlag, whose elegant, classical style gave the series a dignified presence that has endured since 1938. On the reverse sits Monticello, Jefferson's beloved Virginia estate, rendered in stunning architectural detail. On high-grade examples of the 1968 the steps of Monticello become a critical focal point. Coins displaying what collectors call full steps, where 5 or 6 clearly defined uninterrupted steps are visible on the building's portico, are extraordinarily rare and represent the absolute pinnacle of this coin's desirability. Finding a 1968 with full steps designation is like finding a diamond hidden inside a coal mine. Rarity in the 1968 Jefferson Nickel is not about low mintage. Denver produced over 91 million of these coins, but about surviving condition and strike quality. The vast majority of these nickels were spent, circulated, and worn smooth by millions of American hands. The coins that survived in pristine, uncirculated condition are the ones that matter to serious collectors, and among those, the ones certified MS65 or higher by grading services like PCGS or NGC represent a genuinely small and precious subset. Add the full steps designation to that high grade, and you are now talking about a coin that appears in population reports with numbers so low they would make even a veteran numismatist raise an eyebrow. Condition is everything in this market, and the difference between a coin graded MS64 and MS66 FS can represent thousands of dollars in value. When it comes to market value, the 1968 Jefferson Nickel operates across a wide and exciting spectrum depending on condition. A circulated example in average grades might fetch only face value to a few dollars, but the moment you move into certified uncirculated territory, the numbers climb sharply. An MS65 example without the full steps designation can realistically bring anywhere from $50 to $300 at auction. Push that same coin into MS66 territory and you're looking at $500 to $1,500. Now add the full steps designation, that magical FS suffix on the grade label, and the market responds with serious enthusiasm. Certified MS65 full steps examples have sold in the range of $1,000 to $3,500, while MS66 full steps specimens have crossed the $5,000 threshold at major auction houses, with rare MS67 full steps coins occasionally pushing well beyond that into collector legend territory. For collectors looking to acquire a valuable 1968 Jefferson Nickel, the single most important piece of advice is this: never buy raw. Always seek coins that have been independently certified and graded by PCGS or NGC, because the full steps designation is entirely subjective to the naked eye, and authentication protects your investment from the very real risk of cleaned, altered, or misrepresented coins flooding the secondary market. Hunt through auction archives on platforms like Heritage Auctions and Stax Bowers to study recent realized prices before committing to a purchase. Build a relationship with a reputable dealer who specializes in Jefferson Nickels, because they often have access to coins before they hit the public market. Patience is your greatest tool. The right coin at the right grade and the right price is worth waiting for, and rushing into a purchase based on excitement rather than research is the fastest way to overpay. The 1968 D Jefferson Nickel is living proof that extraordinary numismatic treasure can hide in the most ordinary places. It bridges the gap between everyday American commerce and high-level coin collecting, reminding us that beauty, history, and investment value don't always come wrapped in gold or silver. This coin carries the fingerprints of 1968 America, a nation in motion, a mint in transition, and a design legacy stretching back 30 years to Felix Schlag's enduring vision of Thomas Jefferson and his magnificent Monticello. Whether you are a seasoned numismatist adding a certified gem to a world-class typeset, or a curious newcomer just beginning your journey into coin collecting, the 1968 D Jefferson Nickel deserves a place on your radar, your want list, and ultimately your collection. Don't let its modest face value fool you. This nickel is anything but ordinary. The deeper you dig into the world of Jefferson Nickels, the more you realize that the 1968 D occupies a uniquely compelling position within the entire series. Collectors who have spent decades assembling complete Jefferson Nickel sets will tell you that certain dates and mint mark combinations consistently prove more elusive in top condition than others, and the 1968 D sits firmly among the most challenging of the modern era. What makes this particularly fascinating is that the challenge is entirely invisible to the casual observer. Someone handing you this coin as change would never dream that what they considered worthless pocket change could be sitting in a certified holder worth thousands of dollars. That invisible duality, ordinary on the surface, extraordinary underneath, is precisely what makes the hunt for a premium 1968 D so intellectually and emotionally rewarding for serious collectors. One aspect of the 1968 D Jefferson Nickel that deserves far more attention than it typically receives is the role that die quality and mint production techniques played in creating the dramatic variance we see in surviving specimens today. During 1968, the Denver Mint was operating under significant production pressure, pushing coins through at high volume to meet national demand. Early die state coins, those struck when the working dies were fresh, sharp, and had not yet experienced the wear and fatigue that comes with striking hundreds of thousands of planchets, produced coins of dramatically superior detail and surface quality. These early strikes captured Schlag's design with a crispness and three-dimensionality that later strikes simply could not replicate. When you hold a fully struck early die state 1968 D under a loupe and watch the light cascade across those Monticello steps, you are witnessing the Denver Mint performing at its absolute finest, frozen permanently in metal. Next up, imagine holding a coin in your hand that most people walk right past every single day, a simple 5-cent piece that, under the right circumstances, could be worth thousands of dollars to the right collector. The 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel is one of those extraordinary coins that bridges the gap between everyday pocket change and serious numismatic treasure. What makes this particular coin so fascinating isn't just its age or its face value. It's the perfect storm of history, craftsmanship, mint production quirks, and collector obsession that has elevated certain examples of this coin into a class all their own. If you've ever wondered whether a nickel could genuinely excite a room full of seasoned coin experts, the answer is absolutely yes, and the 1997 P is living proof of that. The story of the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel begins at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the most storied and prestigious minting facilities in all of American history. The P mint mark stamped on the obverse of this coin tells collectors immediately that it was struck in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the birthplace of American coinage, and a facility with a legacy stretching back to 1792. In 1997, the United States was riding a wave of economic optimism, and the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins at an enormous scale to keep pace with commerce. That year, the mint struck hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels, which on the surface might make you think rarity wouldn't be a concern, but in the world of coin collecting, total mintage numbers are only part of the story. What truly separates the remarkable 1997 P examples from the rest of the pack is quality, survival rate in pristine condition, and the fascinating variables that occurred during the striking process itself. Felix Schlag's iconic design graces the 1997 P. Jefferson nickel with a timeless elegance that has anchored the 5-cent piece since 1938, and understanding its artistry is key to appreciating why collectors obsess over perfect examples. The obverse features a dignified left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, rendered with remarkable depth and detail that truly shines on high-grade specimens. On the reverse, Monticello, Jefferson's breathtaking Virginia estate and one of the most architecturally significant homes in American history, sits in stunning relief, with its famous dome and columned portico captured in extraordinary detail when the coin is struck with full force and proper die alignment. What collectors specifically hunt for in the 1997 P are examples displaying full steps designation, a term referring to the crisp, uninterrupted horizontal lines visible on the steps leading up to Monticello's entrance. Coins with 5 or 6 fully separated steps are extraordinarily rare and command a dramatic price premium because the vast majority of nickels from this era show weak or partially merged step details due to die wear, improper striking pressure, or insufficient planchet preparation. Here is where the 1997 P. Jefferson nickel transforms from an interesting historical artifact into a genuinely exciting collector's pursuit, because condition is everything, and finding a truly pristine example is far harder than the mintage numbers suggest. While millions of these nickels were produced, the overwhelming majority entered circulation immediately and began accumulating the nicks, scratches, and where that drop a coin's grade and value dramatically. Uncirculated examples that were carefully preserved from the moment they left the mint are relatively scarce. And among those, coins graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC represent a genuinely small subset of the total production. The coveted full steps designation further narrows the field to an almost vanishingly small number of coins that met the precise combination of factors: fresh dies, optimal striking pressure, properly annealed planchets, and careful handling, required to produce a flawlessly detailed strike. When you combine a top-tier numerical grade with the full steps designation, you are talking about a coin that may have only a handful of confirmed examples at the highest levels, making each one an individual treasure with its own story and its own place in the competitive landscape of modern American numismatics. The market for high-grade 1997 P. Jefferson nickels with full steps has produced some genuinely jaw-dropping results that remind collectors why studying seemingly common coins can be so rewarding. In circulated grades, the worn examples you might actually pull from a handful of change, this coin is worth face value or just marginally above it, which is what fools so many people into overlooking it entirely. However, the value curve accelerates sharply as condition improves. A solid MS-64 example without full steps might bring between $15 and $50, while an MS-65 or MS-66 with full steps can realistically sell for anywhere from $500 to well over $2,000 depending on eye appeal and market timing. The truly elite examples graded MS-67 full steps, coins so pristine they look as though they were struck moments ago with not a single contact mark or luster break, have sold at major auction houses for figures approaching $3,000 to $5,000 or more, with the market continuing to reward top population coins generously as collector awareness of this series grows. Registry set competition, where advanced collectors compete to assemble the finest known sets of Jefferson nickels, has added an additional layer of demand that continues to push prices for condition rarities to remarkable heights. If you are serious about adding a prized 1997 P. Jefferson nickel to your collection, the single most important piece of advice is to buy the coin, not just the holder, meaning that professional grading certification from PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential, but your own educated eyes must also confirm that the coin inside the slab is genuinely appealing, well struck, and free from distracting flaws like carbon spots, cleaning, or artificial tunning. Attend major coin shows and monitor auction platforms like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, where certified high-grade Jefferson nickels regularly appear, and where you can study realized prices to develop a genuine feel for current market conditions. Building relationships with dealers who specialize in modern U.S. coinage is invaluable because the best examples often trade privately before they ever reach a public auction. Be patient and be selective. In a series where the difference between an MS-65 full steps and an MS-66 full steps can mean hundreds or even thousands of dollars in value, rushing into a purchase without doing your homework is a costly mistake that experienced collectors never make twice. The 1997 P. Jefferson nickel with full steps is a perfect embodiment of everything that makes coin collecting such a thrilling and intellectually rewarding hobby. It teaches you that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that knowledge and patience are the collector's greatest tools, and that American history lives in the metal of every coin ever struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Thomas Jefferson himself was a man who believed deeply in the power of careful observation and lifelong learning, and chasing the finest known examples of a coin bearing his portrait feels like a fitting tribute to that philosophy. Whether you are a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience or someone who just discovered the world of coin collecting last week, this nickel invites you into a fascinating story about art, history, scarcity, and the enduring human desire to preserve something beautiful. The next time you see a 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, look a little closer, because sometimes the most valuable things in the world are hiding right there in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. Next up, hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most underrated gems in American numismatics, the 1970 D. Jefferson nickel. Now I know what you're thinking, a nickel? Really? But stick with me here because this little 5-cent coin carries a story that spans decades of American history, craftsmanship, and collector obsession. The 1970 D isn't just pocket change. For the right collector in the right condition, it's a prize worth chasing, and today we're going to find out exactly why this coin deserves a serious spot in your collection. To understand why the 1970 D matters, you have to picture America in 1970. The country was in the thick of the Vietnam War era, the space race was in full swing, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to keep up with the nation's demand for circulating coinage. The Denver Mint, marked by that iconic D, just to the right of Monticello on the reverse, struck hundreds of millions of nickels that year. But here's the twist: high mintage doesn't always mean high availability in top-tier condition. Most of those coins went straight into circulation, got rattled around in cash registers, piggy banks, and coat pockets, and came out the other side worn, scratched, and far from collectible. That's where the real story begins. The design itself is a masterpiece of American coinage tradition. Felix Schlag's portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse has graced the nickel since 1938, and by 1970 it had become an iconic American image, dignified, detailed, and deeply historical. On the reverse, Monticello, Jefferson's legendary Virginia estate, is rendered with architectural precision that rewards a close look under magnification. On the 1970 D specifically, collectors hunt for coins where Monticello's steps are fully struck, the pillars are crisp and well-defined, and Jefferson's cheekbone and hair detail show no weakness from a soft die strike. These are the coins that make numismatists stop and stare, because finding a Denver issue from this era with razor-sharp full steps is genuinely rare. What makes the 1970 D particularly compelling from a collector's standpoint is the concept of full steps designation, a grading standard specific to Jefferson nickels that recognizes coins where all 5 or 6 steps leading up to Monticello are completely uninterrupted. Denver Mint coins from the late 1960s and early 1970s are notoriously difficult to find with this designation because of inconsistent die pressure and strike quality during that period. When a 1970 D Jefferson nickel earns a full steps label from a top grading service like PCGS or NGC, it instantly transforms from a common date coin into a genuinely scarce numismatic trophy. That one designation can change a coin's entire value trajectory overnight. Now let's talk numbers, because that's what you're really here for. In circulated grades, the kind of coin you might pull from a coin roll or a grandparent's jar, the 1970 D is worth face value to a few cents above. But as condition climbs, so does value dramatically. In MS63 or MS64 mint state, uncirculated with minor marks, you're looking at anywhere from $5 to $40. Push into MS65, and prices begin climbing toward $50 to $150. But here's where it gets exciting. A 1970 D graded MS66 full steps can command $500 to $1,500 at auction, and in MS67 full steps, one of the finest known examples, prices have reached $3,000 to $5,000 or higher depending on the sale. These aren't theoretical numbers, they're real auction results from PCGS Coinfax and NGC price guide records, and they prove that condition is everything with this coin. So how do you actually go about finding one? First, coin roll hunting is your budget-friendly entry point. Grab rolls of nickels from your bank and search carefully, though the odds of pulling a gem-quality 1970 D are slim. For serious collectors, the smarter move is hitting established coin shows, working with reputable dealers, or bidding through major auction platforms like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers. Always prioritize coins that have been professionally graded and authenticated by PCGS or NGC. Raw, ungraded coins can be overgraded by sellers or, in rare cases, altered. Pay attention to luster, strike quality, and eye appeal, and don't be afraid to pass on a coin that doesn't feel right. Patience in this hobby is always rewarded. At the end of the day, the 1970D Jefferson Nickel is a perfect example of why coin collecting never gets old. It's a coin that looks ordinary on the surface, but rewards the educated eye with layers of history, artistry, and market opportunity. It connects you to a pivotal moment in American history, carries the legacy of one of the nation's founding fathers, and in top condition represents a genuinely scarce numismatic achievement. Whether you're a seasoned collector building a registry set or a newcomer just starting to explore the world of coins, the 1970D is proof that the most exciting treasures aren't always the flashiest ones. Sometimes they're hiding right there in a 5-cent piece. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep hunting. One thing that often gets overlooked when discussing the 1970D Jefferson Nickel is the broader context of the Jefferson Nickel series itself, and how this particular date fits into the complete collection picture. Serious registry set collectors, those competing on platforms like PCGS Set Registry or NGC Registry, know that building a complete Jefferson Nickel set in high grades with full steps is one of the most challenging and rewarding pursuits in American numismatics. The 1970D sits at a particularly tricky spot in that timeline, bridging the classic pre-clad era nickels with the modern issues that followed. Collectors who are assembling Dayton Mint sets quickly discover that this Denver issue becomes one of their most frustrating holes to fill in gem condition, which naturally drives up demand and keeps prices strong even in softer coin markets. That kind of built-in collector pressure is exactly what gives a coin long-term investment staying power. Another fascinating angle that many collectors don't initially consider is the storage and preservation story behind every high-grade 1970D that exists today. The coins that survived 5+ decades in pristine, uncirculated condition did so because someone, a mint employee, a roll collector, or a sharp-eyed hobbyist back in 1970, recognized their potential and set them aside before they ever touched a cash register drawer. Think about that for a moment. Every MS-67 full steps 1970D you see in a PCGS or NGC holder was essentially rescued from circulation by an unknown hero of the hobby. That human element, the chain of careful hands that preserved a coin across generations, adds an almost romantic dimension to ownership that goes far beyond just the metal and the market value. When you hold one of these coins, you're holding someone else's foresight, and that's a genuinely special feeling that no other investment asset can replicate. Finally, if there's one takeaway message from today's deep dive into the 1970D Jefferson Nickel, it's this: never underestimate a coin just because it's common in name. The numismatic world is filled with so-called common dates that become incredibly rare the moment condition standards are applied, and the 1970D is perhaps the most compelling modern example of that principle in action. It teaches new collectors one of the hobby's most valuable lessons. That grade is everything, context is everything, and knowledge is your single greatest advantage at any coin show, auction, or dealer table. The collectors who win in this hobby aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest budgets. They're the ones who did their homework, understood what they were looking for, and had the patience to wait for the right coin at the right price. The 1970D Jefferson Nickel is your classroom, your challenge, and potentially your next great score, all wrapped up in one tiny 5-cent package. Next up, welcome back to the channel. And today we are diving into a coin that most people have completely overlooked sitting right in their pocket change, the 1987P Jefferson Nickel. Now before you click away thinking this is just another common 5-cent piece, hear me out, because this particular coin carries a story that connects American history, artistic legacy, and a collector's market that continues to surprise even the most seasoned numismatists. The P mint mark on this coin is not just a letter, it is a passport to one of the most fascinating chapters in modern United States coinage, and once you understand what makes this coin genuinely special, you will never look at a nickel the same way again. The year 1987 was a pivotal moment in American culture and economics. The country was riding the tail end of the Reagan era, the stock market was experiencing dramatic swings, and the United States Mint in Philadelphia was striking coins at a pace that reflected a booming economy. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most historically significant minting facilities in the world, produced the 1987P Jefferson Nickel as part of a long-running series that began back in 1938. That original design was created by the legendary sculptor Felix Schlag, who won a national competition to immortalize Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, author of the Declaration of Independence and the mastermind behind Monticello on the obverse of America's 5-cent coin. What makes 1987 uniquely interesting is that it falls within a transitional era of American coinage where mint quality, die preparation, and collector awareness were all evolving simultaneously. What truly sets the 1987 P apart from the millions of other nickels struck that year is the extraordinary detail that can be found on high-grade survivors. The obverse portrait of Thomas Jefferson, rendered in Schlag's classic style, showcases incredible depth when struck on a well-prepared planchet with fresh dies. The reverse image of Monticello, Jefferson's beloved Virginia estate, is where collectors really get excited, because on the finest examples you can see the architectural details of the columns, the steps, and the dome with a crispness that speaks to the precision of early die strikes. The P mint mark, introduced to Philadelphia coinage in 1980, appears prominently on the obverse, and on coins that escaped heavy circulation, this mark retains sharp edges that serve as an important grading indicator for professional coin evaluators. Rarity and condition are the twin engines that drive the value of the 1987 P Jefferson nickel into territory that shocks first-time researchers. While hundreds of millions were minted, the survival rate of coins in truly pristine uncirculated condition, particularly those graded MS-65 full steps or higher by services like PCGS or NGC, is dramatically lower than the original mintage suggests. The full steps designation refers to the complete, uninterrupted horizontal lines visible at the base of Monticello on the reverse, and achieving this on a 1987 P is notoriously difficult due to strike inconsistencies and the softness of the nickel-copper alloy. Coins that show 5 or 6 fully defined steps on Monticello are considered the holy grail among Jefferson nickel specialists, and the population of certified examples in these top grades remains surprisingly thin, creating genuine scarcity in a coin that most people would assume is common. When it comes to market value, the 1987 P Jefferson nickel proves that condition is everything in numismatics. In circulated grades, this coin is indeed worth face value or just marginally above it, but climb the grading scale and the numbers become genuinely exciting. A certified MS-64 example can fetch anywhere from $15 to $75 depending on eye appeal and the strength of the strike. Once you reach MS-65 with full steps, values jump dramatically into the $200 to $800 range, and in MS-66 full steps, a grade that represents essentially perfect coins with flawless surfaces and a razor-sharp Monticello. Auction records and dealer price lists have shown figures ranging from $1,000 to well over $5,000 for the finest certified examples. These are not theoretical numbers, they reflect real transactions between serious collectors who understand exactly how difficult it is to find a 1987 P that checks every box. For collectors looking to add a top-tier 1987 P Jefferson nickel to their holdings, the strategy begins with education and patience. Always prioritize coins that have been independently certified by PCGS or NGC, as these third-party grading services provide authentication and an objective grade that protects both buyers and sellers in the marketplace. Search major auction platforms like Heritage Auctions, Stax Bowers, and Great Collections, where population reports and past sale prices give you real data to work with before committing to a purchase. Pay close attention to the strike quality on the reverse steps of Monticello. Even within the same grade, coins with sharper step definition and superior luster will always command premium prices and hold their value better over time. Building a relationship with a reputable dealer who specializes in modern United States coinage can also open doors to coins that never make it to public auction. The 1987 P Jefferson nickel is living proof that extraordinary numismatic value does not always come wrapped in ancient packaging or dramatic historical drama. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, tucked inside a roll of coins or sitting forgotten in a jar on a kitchen counter. This coin represents the artistic vision of Felix Schlag, the architectural genius of Thomas Jefferson, and the proud legacy of the Philadelphia Mint, all compressed into a small, silvery disc that fits in the palm of your hand. Whether you are a lifelong collector chasing full-step perfection or a newcomer just discovering the incredible depth of American coinage, the 1987 P offers an accessible entry point with a very real ceiling of serious investment value. Add it to your collection not just as a coin but as a conversation piece, a piece of American history, and a reminder that in numismatics the greatest treasures are often the ones hiding in the most unexpected places. The journey of collecting the 1987 P. Jefferson nickel is also a deeply personal one, and that emotional connection is something no price guide can fully capture. Every time you hold one of these coins and examine the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, a man who shaped the very foundation of American democracy, you are touching a tangible link between the modern world and the revolutionary ideals that built a nation. Monticello on the reverse is not just a building, it is Jefferson's dream made real, a monument to intellectual curiosity and architectural ambition that still stands today in Charlottesville, Virginia, welcoming visitors from around the world. When a coin tells that kind of story while simultaneously offering the thrill of the hunt for perfect full steps and the satisfaction of a smart investment, it transcends the category of mere hobby and becomes something truly meaningful. The 1987 P. Jefferson nickel is not just a 5-cent piece, it is 5 cents worth of American soul, and for the collector wise enough to recognize its potential, it is an opportunity that does not come around twice. And here is something that every serious collector should keep firmly in mind as they navigate the ever-evolving landscape of American numismatics. The window of opportunity for acquiring top-tier examples of the 1987 P. Jefferson nickel at today's prices may not remain open forever. As more collectors discover the genuine scarcity of high-grade full steps examples, and as the certified population of MS66 and MS67 coins remains stubbornly thin, market demand is quietly but steadily building in ways that mirror the early appreciation cycles seen with other modern coins that were once dismissed as common before suddenly commanding 4- and 5-figure prices at auction. The generational shift currently happening in coin collecting, where younger enthusiasts are bringing fresh energy, online research tools, and serious disposable income into the hobby, is already beginning to push prices on undervalued modern United States coins in directions that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. Savvy collectors who do their homework now build relationships with trusted dealers, monitor certified population reports through PCGS and NGC, and acquire the finest examples they can afford today are positioning themselves not just as hobbyists, but as forward-thinking numismatic investors who recognize the story before the rest of the world caught up. The 1987 P. Jefferson nickel is that kind of coin, quiet, understated, and absolutely brimming with potential for those patient and perceptive enough to see what others have missed.